The SPC module will manage the databases automatically, and that's typical for all the MES modules. So if I draw out a box up here, and that represents ignition there, and the SPC module is just a module inside of ignition. So I'll show it that way. So when this SPC module starts up, it will go out to a database and ensure that the database tables exist and that all the correct columns are in the tables and that the indexes for those tables are all correct. So the first type of database we have is called a local database. And what's stored in the local database is sample definition information. So for example, if we're taking a viscosity measurement and we define that in advance and we say, okay, we want to collect the viscosity and the viscosity is going to be a number between 9,000 and 11,000 and that we also want to take the temperature along with the viscosity and that's range, what that is, and what locations is it appropriate to take this test, and all those kinds of things are stored in that local sample definition. So what that means is when we use a different color here, when we have a client that is going to enter in sample data, they select the definition. And if they select the viscosity definition, it's going to create a screen and we'll see viscosity and temperature in this example that I'm giving, and it will have entry boxes for that. So that information came from this local database and generated that screen. Now the second type of database that we have with the MES modules is called analysis. And this also has some information that it's not as complete as over here, but has sample definition information over here. And I'll explain why in a second. We also have information anytime we take a sample. So who took that sample? Where did they take it? What was the time of day? What was the shift? All those kinds of things are stored with that sample. When was it originally scheduled to be taken? All those kinds of things are stored anytime a sample is taken. And we also have the measurements. Any notes that go along with that, and any additional factors. So additional factors are like raw material lot number. So if you're taking a sample on some raw material and you want to track it by lot number, you can, and then you can pull it out and say, show me all the samples for this lot number, and you can do things like that. So you can create any number of additional factors and then be able to do your SPC analysis based on those. So the information to create this screen came from the local database. But then when the data is entered, so we'll say sample added, that goes in here and down to this analysis database. So the actual data is stored in this database down here. So what that does for us is that now when we do analysis and we pull up a control chart, It comes from that analysis data. And we have a control chart here. So the SPC module reads the raw data, sample information, and it adds to it. It tests to see if we violated any rules and does some other, maybe calculates control limits, does other things like that, and puts it out here. So to be able to do that, we needed to know some sample definition information. We needed to know viscosity and what control limits to apply to it, and that there's also temperature and all that kind of stuff. So that's why we have this sample definition here duplicated, or at least some of the information that's in here is duplicated over here. So why do we separate it out in two databases like this? Well, the main reason is that this connection here goes through store and forward. What store and forward is, that's built into ignition. And what that is if we lose the connection to this database, it will cache the information here. So if we want to write, somebody enters a sample and we want to write down here, but we can't talk to that database because we lost the wide area connection to it or something, it will store it here, cache it. And as soon as that connection comes up, it will remove it out of the cache into here. So if this database is local, we can enter our samples. We can write our data. If this isn't here, we can cache it, and then when it does come here, it continues. So in the case that we lose the database connection to our analysis database here, and I'm going to get into the next section why we are separating this off and why we might want that way. But in the case that we do lose that, we can still take samples. We can still know what to display and build this screen and do that because we have all that information in this local database here. Now, I'm showing this as two separate databases. If you have a single site installation, these two databases could be one of the same. If you have MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle installed, you only need one instance of it, and the local tables and the analysis tables can both go in the same database. In the next session here, I'm going to talk about multi-site installation and how this becomes important for that.